All right, I want to tell you a story. Happened so many years ago, I might have to stop and think about exactly how long it was. But I saw a UFO flight, saw the thing fly, and was able to see it pretty easy. And I'm 92 years old, so I'm not sure if my memory is going to be quite as good as I would like at this effort to retell the story. This took place somewhere in the neighborhood of 1960 somewhere. And back in those days, Mississippi used hunting dogs to chase rabbits and deer with. Well, that's not very popular anymore. But I had gone to a hunting camp, and the man had some really good hunting dogs he chased deer with, which they'd get the deer running or maybe run a nice buck by you. So anyway, I wanted to go out and feed my dogs, which I had bought while I was on the camp. And while I was on the camp, I had a big trough where we could put the feed in. It was covered where it wouldn't get wet. And it had a big trough of water too, which water, as long as it doesn't evaporate, it's okay. And well, anyway, I needed to go out there and feed my dogs. So what I do is I buy a 50-pound sack of, if I remember right, it was Tops dog food. I don't even know if they sell that anymore or not, but it was good at the time. And well, anyway, my Jeep was broke down, and my cousin Forrest Griffiths, he had a Jeep pickup, made more noise than a hurricane. I don't think he even had a muffler on it. If he did, it wasn't much. And I asked him to take me out to my hunting camp so I could feed the dogs. Well, being a nice cousin, he's a pretty good guy. He agreed to. So anyway, he came by and picked me up. I had the 50-pound sack of feed. I put it in the back of his truck. And what was so unusual about this particular trip was that why I needed him to take me out there was because there was a layer of ice, not snow. I'm sure there's a little snow in it, but there was a layer of ice on the road, all the roads. And you'd have to have a 4-wheel drive with some good strong grips on it to do it slowly. So I asked him if he'd take me out there to feed him, and he said, well, sure, I'll be glad to help you. So he came by and picked me up. I put the feed in the back of the truck, and we headed out from Yazoo City going towards a little town called Holly Bluff. And Holly Bluff is about like 15 miles, I guess. That's just a guess. Pretty good ways from Yazoo City. And so we got in his truck, and I told him, I said, well, we're not going to have to be too worried or be too careful, because with all this ice on the ground, people are not going to be riding around in their vehicles very much at all. And I think that was correct, and he did too. And we didn't think we'd even meet another car once we got out of town. And there wasn't many people in town that was still driving. If you've ever driven with ice on the streets, it won't take you long to figure out how to get out of it. But anyway, we left Yazoo City going west towards Holly Bluff, which was about 15 miles away. And I said, we're going to drive slow. I said we probably didn't intend to drive over 20 miles an hour, 20 to 25 miles an hour, because the hunting camp wasn't that far out of town. Maybe 10 miles, I'm not sure. It's been a long time ago. And anyway, we headed out towards Holly Bluff. And I told him, I said, you don't have to really worry about it if we see another car, so we'll just pull off to the side of the road and let them pass, because we have mud grips and a good strong truck here to let them pass. If the car doesn't have as good a tires as we would have if we met one. But anyway, that was the plan. We'd just pull off the side of the road and let the other car go by. Well, I didn't think we'd ever even see a car. And we didn't. But on the way to Holly Bluff, we went out. I'm going to take a wild guess. It's been so long ago now. We went out about, I guess, about 8 or 9 miles, something like that. And that's where it is. There's a little dirt road that ran off the highway going out to the old hunting camp, which had at one time been a little house that people that worked on the farm stayed in it, and did people with labor make a little money, have a place to live, and make a little money too. When I say a little money, I'm sure it was quite a little. If you furnish somebody a place to live and food to eat, it's going to be pretty small. So we got out there almost to the little road, and I told Forrest, I said, believe it or not, Forrest, I said, I'm looking down this road, and I see headlights coming. I couldn't hardly believe it. What in the world would somebody be doing out on an icy road, driving around in an automobile of some kind, or truck, or whatever it might have been? And I said, well, when we get up to it, we'll just have to go real slow and get off the side of the road, off the highway part, and we'll just sit still, let them pass us. That way they won't run into them. So anyway, we get closer and closer to the car, which is going slowly, and get closer and closer. And we actually never did pull off to the side of the road, because when we got closer to the car, we realized it was not an automobile. It was flying over the top of the trees. And how far over the top of the trees, I can only just estimate. But it wasn't high. They wasn't high off the ground. It was like Mississippi has large trees, and they were probably twice as the thing that we were going to film or pass. We did wind up filming it, and as it passed, it was about twice as tall as the trees. Mississippi has large trees. So anyway, it passed on going towards Yazoo City. And I said, Forrest, that thing is going towards Yazoo City. He said, yeah, it must be a helicopter or something like that. You know, his whole truck was making so much noise that we couldn't hear the helicopter sound. If we could have heard it, we didn't pay any attention to it. And it went on towards Yazoo City. Probably about 6, 7, 8 miles away. So we pretty well just forgot about it. And Forrest made the remark, said, if he's taking somebody to the hospital, there's no place in Yazoo City for a helicopter to land. This has been a long time ago, back in, I think somewhere closer in 1970. That's been a long time ago. We're now in 2025, that was a long time ago. So anyway, it passed on by, and it was off to the left side of the road. It would have been on his side, would have been his right side of the road, but we were put on his left. So we didn't think any more about it, just went on. We chatted on it for a minute, and he said, well, there's no place up there for them to land. I don't know where they'd land in Yazoo City. That's where all the hills start, and where we were going to be. Our hunting lodge was in the Delta, which is flat as a pancake. And so anyway, we went on down, and all of a sudden the thing came back on the same side of the road, this time going the same way we're going. and it passed us by again on the same side and went on. We didn't really pay attention to any sound. I'm sure it was making some, but the forester's truck was so loud, the exhaust was so bad, we didn't pay any attention to the sound. And we went on by, it went on by, and we went out on a dirt road going out to where the little camp house was. And we got out there where the camp house was, and he pulled up to the dog pen, which had a nice little house on it for the dogs to get in and they could lay down in the hay and be comfortable. They had water and they had a drink. They wouldn't be uncomfortable at all as long as you kept food for them. And so anyway, I got the food out of the back of the truck, and I took the feed, 50-pound sack of feed, out there in the middle of the opening where the little house was, and carried the 50-pound sack of feed out there in the little dog pen, and I'm opened up the top of the sack, and I'm just really kind of pouring it in, all at one time. And about the time I got to pouring it, I looked, Forrest said something like, "Hey, Ross." So, and I looked at him, I said, "What?" He said, "There that thing is again." I said, "Where?" And he pointed up in the sky where it was. And sure enough, there was a glow up in the sky of the lights. And we had no idea what it might be. It wasn't an airplane, because we were actually standing still at that time. And this time it was a lot closer to us. And we could look over the top of the trees and see it sitting still. I'm gonna take a wild guess how close we were to it. It was, well, I'd say probably 400, 500, 600, 700 yards away. But at this time it was higher up in the sky than it was when we passed it on the road. And Forrest said, "Ross said, that thing is not making any noise." See, we'd cut the engine off in that old truck by then, and you could hear very easily, especially when everything's frozen. You don't have any birds flying or anything making any noise whatsoever. And when you have a freeze like that, there's very little wind and what have you. He said, "That thing is not making any noise, and it's flying, you know, something's got to make it fly. Some kind of engine of some kind should make it fly." So he said, "What do you think that is?" I said, "Well, I have no idea." I said, "But I'm going to tell you one thing." I said, "We need to go over there and see what it is." Because it was about maybe a half a mile away, but a little higher up in the sky this time. And it was sitting still. And he said, "Well, I don't know if I want to go over and see what that thing is or not." I said, "Why not?" "They're not going to bother us." He said, "Well, you don't even know who it is." I said, "Well, you don't either. There's no way, any reason for them to bother us. We're not going to bother them. We just want to get up a little closer where we can see what's going on." He said, "No, I'm not going to let you have my truck." I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Well, if I let you have my truck, I won't have a way back." I said, "Well, hell, I'm going to come back and pick you up. I'm not going to leave you sitting out here in the cold without a truck or heat in it." And I said, "You just go with me." He said, No, not me. I'm not going over there." And I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Well, I'm afraid." I said, "There's nothing to be afraid of." He said, "Well, you don't know what that thing is. It's not doing right. It's not a helicopter. It's not an airplane. It's not doing right at all. It's flying without making any noise." And I said, "Well, all right. Well, let me have the truck, and I'll come." He said, "No, you won't come back, because I'm not going to let you have my truck." Well, I thought about walking over there. I could have walked over there. It wasn't really too far to walk. There was no old dirt road that went through the woods. But see, that's where jeeps and things had been hunting, and the tires and rims would make not holes in the road, but they would make it be crooked. It wouldn't be like a nice smooth little road. And it was frozen, so it would be very hard to walk on. And I thought about maybe, well, I could just walk through the woods where it's nice and flat. But then you got the limbs sticking down, little twigs and everything off the trees. And at night, without a light or anything, that's not going to be very good to try to walk in. So I just said, well, I guess I just won't go. You don't want to go see what it is. He said, no, I don't want to go. I said, all right, so we're just going back then. So we got in the truck and drove away. Anyway, that happened somewhere back in the 60s, I'd say probably 1967 or 1970, somewhere in that area. And I don't talk about this to very many people because it's probably not very interesting. Something that an old man saw years ago. So I guess that's the end of the story. If you like it, applause is accepted. Oh, and by the way, I'm 92 years old. And when you get 92 years old, you got too old to lie. So I'm too old to lie, I'm telling you the truth. Now what the thing was, I have no idea. I've always wondered if I'd have gone the next day over there where that thing landed. I knew about where it would land. And it was a clean pasture over there. And what it was a new soybean field that they were going to start next year. And I wish I had gone over there the next day just to see where the thing landed, because it did go down. Under control. It was never out of control. So anyway, that's the story that happened to me years and years ago. You make up your own mind what you think about it. So I bid you goodbye.